how does porn affect guys uh, and women, like that relationship?
Mm. Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm so glad you added all of that with your story. I appreciate you sharing that, man. We have coached a lot of men, and our range of men that I've worked with is 18. You know, I obviously can't work with children, but I have worked with an 18-year-old high school senior, and I've coached guys into their 60s. So it does affect everybody, no matter what your age is. And I think it's important to when we're going to talk about everything from this point on, the effects, the harm, the side effects.
Yeah.
I want to preface it under the context that where we're going to go now is talking about internet streaming pornography. It is a completely different drug. It is a completely different animal than everything that you talked about, the magazines, the VHS, all the other stuff. What is referred to in the neuroscience world, this is not my terminology. This is coming from doctors and researchers and people that are exploring and researching the dopamine reward circuits in our brain. Pornography is identified and recognized as what's known as a supernormal stimulus. So everything we're doing right now, there's obviously a lot of kind of going on behind the scenes in our brain. There's synapses and firing and things are kind of happening all the time when you're consuming. As people are listening, when I say certain things, triggers certain responses. So everything we're consuming is creating responses in our brain. What happens with pornography, though, is because it's so readily available. There's an infinite amount of supply, 165 years of pornography on the internet right now. You'd have to sit down straight for 165 years just to consume the amount of pornography that's on one site. So it's all this readily available. And every new video creates a new neural response. So first, second exposure, what ends up happening is create a new baseline of dopamine in your brain. So dopamine is what's referred to as the currency of addiction, the currency of motivation in your brain. So you establish a new baseline because that first hit, it's like, whoa, this is something like my brain is not created or not wired to handle. It's super normal. Like there's nothing in the natural world that'll create the stimulus response of dopamine that you get from pornography. Yes, some hardcore drugs, you know, meth, cocaine, like these real high dopaminergic drugs. And I'm not saying porn is the same as coke. Like that's not what I'm trying to say. The response in our brain, though, is very, very similar. Now, you asked about the perception of women and what it does to the male's brain. So they've put scans on the person's brain while watching pornography. And we have different circuits and they're different areas of our brain. When you watch pornography, the part of the brain that lights up is the part of your brain that is associated with recognizing and identifying objects. Okay, so when I see this cup here sitting on my desk, if I was going to go grab it, there's a part of my brain before I can actually reach out and grab it that's going to say, that's a cup, that's an object, I need to go grab it to pick it up. The different part of your brain when I look at you, when I see you, there's a different part of the brain that is activated. That's a part for relationship. That's a part for a connection. What they've noticed is through brain scans is when you're watching pornography, the part of the brain that lights up is a part that is associated with objects. Okay, so where this leads you to is men talk about, I objectify every single woman that I look at. Because through neuroscience, what fires together wires together. So every time you sit down and watch pornography, your brain is lighting up in the object center, but you're seeing the human physique. You're seeing a person or what you believe is a person. So you're beginning to wire those connections that when I see people, people become objects in my life. So this can be sexual objectification, or this can be where a lot of relationships in my life when in my 30s, it's like, it was no more about a mutual relationship. It's what are you going to do for me? What financial gain are you going to bring to me? What fun gain? What party gain? Whatever it was. Every relationship that I had became transactional. It became part of like an object. It was a relationship, not with a person, but a relationship with the object, the person that I have. So that's probably the biggest thing that I just wanted to make sure that we get across. It's literally you're wiring and programming yourself that when you see people, you begin to identify them as objects. I'm not really well versed on the incel community, so I can't really speak a lot to what you're saying there. Obviously, know that they're out there. I think that many of those guys, like if I could get my hands on them for 90 to 120 days and reboot their brain, their entire perspective on the world would change.